It was the second weekend of 5 big-time weekends for Florida State football as they are hosting official visitors left and right on campus here in Tallahassee, including a couple of big-name skill position players. He's Michael Langston, senior recruiting analyst for Warchant.com. My name is Tom Lang, and we are going to catch up on most of, if not all of, the OVs that happened this particular weekend, Michael. And I do want to lead with a question about a player that people are asking about on the boards. You see it social media-wise. He's a legacy. He's a wide receiver, and his name is Devin Carter. He seemed to be all smiles in his interview with you guys yesterday. What did you hear from Florida State's making a pitch at the Auburn commit, Devin Carter?
Yeah, former FSU commit too. I think that's a point that people forget. He committed to him very early, and then later, obviously, it wasn't going the way the season and stuff. So he was questioned about what the offense was going to be. But I think it was a phenomenal visit. FSU knocked it out of the park as far as everything I could tell. Interesting note just on kind of when they came into the first day of Friday, there was a there was players out there, the player hosts were out there for him. I think that had an impact. Devin had a lot of his family with him. I think a little kid he was carrying along. They were serious about this visit. I think the big thing is just the offense. And he said some things which was really interesting to me was obviously he was very enamored as far as just his connection with people. But the players did a really good job of connecting with him. I think he mentioned Kevin Sperry a few times, and then certainly likes Thomas a lot. But being around the players, he got a family vibe that really connected strongly with him. And then two, he called Malzahn a genius and said, um, you know, and showed like it wasn't like I like this offense. It's I believe in this offense. What they do. So I think he's very sold on what they're going to do offensively, and the product matches what they do or have shown so far. As far as the product, not so much the wins. I don't think that's vital. I think it's mainly the product, and the product's there. I think they're going to have a good chance of pulling that off.
Yeah, it sounds like he's extremely in favor of the offensive coaching changes that happened in the offseason, Michael. I mean, he was here to vet that. He calls Gus Malzahn a genius, but he loves Tim Harris Jr. because there's a history there.
Yeah.
And he used the term when he was referring to the coaching situation 10 times better. He could have been talking a little bit about the UCF situation versus the coach at Florida State, or
Yeah.
maybe, 2.0 for Mike Norvell versus 1.0. But it's clear that just judging by, to me, his body language, it seems like whatever Florida State is telling him, everything from offensive usage, NIL, all that stuff, it seems like he was pleased with the things that he and his family heard this weekend.
Yeah, and immediately he's coming back to the FSU Alabama game, season opener. Bam, he's going to be there. So that tells you that's the good thing about going after guys that are committed. It's not like you have to worry about them making a decision. The fact that they're going to see other places and just keep their options open. But I think that alone too was an interesting point where he said, "Yeah, I'm going to be at the FSU Alabama game. First game of the year they're playing. Bam, he's there." So I think he's definitely in on just what this offense is, and I think it's just up to them to show it.
Florida State was hosting more than just this particular skill position player over the weekend. Sounds like they made some progress, Michael, in the running back at the running back position. I know some of the nuggets that you put on the boards. We don't give away everything on Warchant TV. But we know that this was a story that's been promoted over the last 24 hours nationally and also on the boards. It's Carson Baker, a running back that Florida State has prioritized. What can you tell us about that recruitment and maybe any other skill position players they were working on?
Yeah, well, that was kind of the guy I listed when we did our preview together. That was one where he's had different leaders. Obviously, he's speed wise. I mean, he's crazy fast. But also, really good in space, and that's always been an attraction. And there's been a connection with FSU, even way back when FSU was the leader before Ohio State and in Florida and all these other teams. His mom really likes FSU a lot, and that connection there has always been strong. And it certainly illustrated itself again this weekend. Coach Yak's done a really good job as far as just showcasing what that room is. It's a really strong room when you look at it across the board, and I think he sees the kind of ways that they're going to utilize him, and and being around a lot of these guys like Usman Chromo, who's already there. That's a big deal to have another top guy can kind of tell you, hey, the ins and outs of what's going on since I've been here. and I think that certainly was a plus throughout the week. Just being around the players and kind of experiencing, his connection with the running back room, which is one they take very seriously. Not saying the other position they don't, but that's a room that's very close. So when you get a guy around that to see kind of what it's like in person, I think it certainly makes an impact, and I definitely think they're a strong player. I thought you're a strong player before, but then this went to another level where it moved the needle, a good amount as far as FSU. I think Steve Wilfong did a story talking about, hey, they're a strong factor now, and that's kind of stuff I suggested in my recruiting wrap. And I would even say, like, after the visit, I'd say they have the momentum I've heard as far as leading the momentum. But I would also caution people. He's had 2 or 3 different leaders, so has that calmed down? We don't know, but definitely they nailed it with this one.
Yeah, classic case of recruiting in the modern era. It's
Yeah.
it's never over. This is another player who's 6'1". Chroma is not a short running back as well. Just in general, Michael, your thoughts about recruiting running backs as a position under Gus Malzahn in this offense. I would imagine the name Malzahn travels
Yeah.
in these circles because they know, running backs know, and parents and handlers and coaches of running backs understand what Gus Malzahn wants to do, and that's run the football.
Yeah, I think Yak was probably the happiest guy when they probably added Gus Malzahn because
Yeah.
there's such a history there with what he does with running backs and even offenses that I think it's exciting. I think that certainly has helped a lot, to have a guy. I mean, even Usman, when he committed, he's like, Gus was a big reason, because of what he does with backs. And even when he said, hey, I didn't know what I was going to do, it was kind of like that Gus Malzahn offense. He knew he was going to be taken care of, and this offense was going to run the ball. And I think that was probably a big thing too this weekend that they illustrate. We're going to run the ball a lot, man. So that's a very attractive thing when you have a guy that has a history of doing that. Sure, there's other great schools like Florida, Ohio State, and other programs that certainly can run the ball, but as far as comparing that to Gus, I mean Gus is one of the top as far as doing that. So that definitely moves the needle with a lot of recruits when you see that. So I think Carson Baker was definitely the one that really caught my attention throughout the weekend of the intel I picked up throughout the weekend on running backs.
And I would think, just moving to the defensive side of the ball now, if running backs is a position that is a specialty of the offensive coordinator, linebacker seems to be a position that's a specialty of the defensive coordinator. If you're going to
Yeah.
run a 3-3-5, and at least part of the time that's what Tony White wants to do, if not most of the time, you're going to need linebackers to be on the field, and they need to be difference makers. And I would imagine that Florida State in this era, again, the 2.0 staff for Mike Norvell, is probably making some waves at that position group. And what did you learn this weekend about those official visitors and what's going on there?
Yeah, right. We're not used to this linebacker recruiting stuff that we're seeing, so this has been a definitely a jolt. Rodney Colton, a 4-star. I felt going in to visit FSU was in a pretty good spot. He had already set his announcement date right during the official visit, and then I felt good about kind of where they sat. TJ White's another one that they've laid the groundwork. Kind of, you go back to TJ White's recruitment. He said FSU had one of the best plans as far as the first visit, laying it out, kind of what they're going to use and how they're going to use it. And that's an advantage when you have a defensive coordinator that's a former linebackers coach. I think that has certainly helped boomed it up. I think it's another boom is just having JP at his natural position. I
Yep.
mean, he's naturally as a linebackers coach. He's really good. Kids love him. Rodney loves him. I mean, Rodney just like as far as trust, he's like that's the only guy he mentioned to me. Like that's one that I know I trust a lot. So that's definitely made an impact. You got DQ Forkpaw, who is another one where I think Wilfong put out that FSU is a top school. I think that's really for that one. I think that's more about hey, is he going to get the green light to do this? Like because I feel like he wants to be a Seminole. That's kind of the tea leaves I've got, but does he have the green light yet? That's kind of what's up there because you still got TJ White and you got Colton, and then you have other guys like Noah Lavallee who's going to visit. Caleb's already here. You could pull that kid. So it's really just what about the ones they prefer. But overall, it's a good problem to have when you have guys that want to be there. And I think 3 of those guys they could end up that visited this weekend. They could end up Seminoles, but It's really just the preference of how what they push like, and I love Fort Paws film, by the way. I think that will be an excellent addition, and maybe they take more than three. But overall, I think Tony White and JP have done a phenomenal job at that position.
Yeah, that's one thing where I was trying to be kind, and but you're absolutely right. We're not used to this thing with linebacker recruiting, and I would
Yeah.
think hopefully that bleeds over to offensive line recruiting as well. Again, because the system, offensive linemen love the run block, and the system is calling for that. There's a piece that's coming up. Michael put together about the trench notes, a couple of defensive linemen
Yeah.
and offensive line commit Michael Ionata. You're going to see that at warchant.com if you're a member. If not, sign up today. It's $1 for your first week, and then you get to join the largest FSU fan community in the industry. I hope you join us for that. I do want to move off of offensive line because I think we've done like 6 videos of that the last
Yeah.
few weeks, Michael.
Yeah.
So, but I do want to know about one specific defensive lineman. He's a part of the piece that's coming out on warchant.com, but that's Ernest Rankins. This seems to be a legitimate prospect here, and
Yeah.
it seems as though Florida State made a dent this weekend in terms of the OV.
Yeah, great edge guy. Guy that said, "Hey, I can play all three. Doesn't matter where you put me, strong side, weak side, or even you want to throw him in the middle." He felt really comfortable with that, and I think Knighton did a really good job. Terrence Knighton, that's a guy that has done really well with when guys are on campus. The connection and what they do in the moving the needle. We say that a lot as far as recruiting. He does a good job with that, and I think Rankins, there's definitely one. Even said like this is an eye-opening visit for sure. I think coming to visit, they're probably like fifth or something. They're certainly in the top three, now. And I think they made a big impact of what he would do as far as the fit. And I think they illustrated and showed with film study. Even said I did film study for like an hour, just with Knighton, and they kind of showed him kind of what they've done at Nebraska and what they've done with other guys, and I think that really resonated heavily. And he's a guy that early impact. If he's good and he's ready, he's going to be able to play there early compared to a place like Georgia or other places where you might have to wait a while or wait your time. And I think FSU, the impact is really stronger. And then the players, he did a really good job just connecting with him. Once again, we've said that along. I can't express enough positive stuff I can throw towards the players. They've done a really good job this weekend selling this program, because it's one thing when coaches tell you, because let's face it, I mean coaches some believe them, some don't, but when it comes to the players and they get it directly from them, they have one-on-ones, and they're in their seclusion of with each other talking. It means a lot more, and I think that really resonated a lot with Ernest throughout the weekend.
We're a little bit close to up to time here. I did want to talk about defensive backs, but I'm not going to. You're going to have to find that information on warchant.com and the Premium Recruiting Board. A couple of great stories about a top 100 South Carolina commit
Yeah.
that Florida State made an impact on. There's a couple others as well. I do want to talk about early playing time and that sales pitch. I've heard that from a couple of kids, Michael, in some of these interviews that we have up on Warchant TV. But I just, in terms of Florida State coaches prioritizing that pitch, are you hearing that more with this new staff? What about selling early playing time?
Yeah, because I mean, when you're coming off a 2-10 season, that's a part of what you have to sell, because you're selling, one, the product's going to be different what you are this year, but the two, um, we've illustrated this, excuse me, guys, several times, that they need better young high school recruiting. So to get that, you really have to sell that and pitch that, and I think they pitched that a lot. We saw that with Devin Carter. Certainly saw that with Rankins, even guys like Samari Matthews and Jajon Currents, who's committed to South Carolina. You've seen that where it's almost like a must that you do have to sign something that makes yourself unique, that you can do, that you can illustrate. Because here's the thing, FSU is still FSU, no matter what their rivals or their haters call them. Florida State is Florida State. So when the program's nailing and hitting, they're dangerous. I don't care, who's the coach there. It has an attraction. So I think that's one of the things that they've really highlighted, that they're not promising things, but there's like, you do this, you do that. We can illustrate and show you these guys are going to play early. Javen Dogg's going to play early. Devin Carter hears that. He likes that. Guys hear that stuff, and that's certainly a thing that is very coveted by recruits.
Florida State has a few more weeks yet of official visits coming on campus, and upwards of 6 dozen players that are going to be officially visiting FSU when it's all said and done. If I know you're still finalizing the list of the kids that are coming in this weekend, Michael. If I was just to ask positions that already have your eye for this upcoming week, we don't have to get into the names. Just what position groups do you think are going to be focused on this upcoming weekend in Tallahassee?
Top have to be quarterback. I mean, they don't have one. So assuming Landon Duckworth makes the visit, we haven't heard anything that he isn't. But I think quarterback is certainly one of the top ones. They don't have a lot of receivers. That will be another one that you kind of focus on. There's a lot more guys that we cover throughout the weekend, but I think those two are certainly there.